Hi, how you going? It's Monica Plemikos here from HypnoLab. Thank you so much for joining me. I thought I'd jump on quickly and just say hi, introduce myself, because I haven't done a live on YouTube before. So hi from me, and share with you my insights around sugar addiction and how to actually curb that addiction or habit perhaps that you've developed. So it's important to note, before we get into all of that, and I'll be giving you some strategies as well to curb those, and they'll be coming up nice and shortly. So like I said, my name is Monica Plemikos. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and psychotherapist, and through the course of my work and consulting with clients, I specialise in weight loss and also this whole food addiction and food binging. So that's something that I speak to a lot of people about, and that I provide therapeutic intervention to help people overcome not only their addiction but also that the inner stress that can occur with constantly wanting to have sugar or certain kinds of foods and so on and so forth. So I see a lot of people in my clinic, and also, by seeing those people and getting really familiar with the types of challenges that one goes through when they're addicted to sugar, to lollies, maybe cakes and biscuits. Ice cream is another big one, but chocolate is got to be one of the biggest ones. Then I tend to see certain traits that are familiar from person to person. Now, obviously, everybody's different, and the underlying reason as to why someone has a sugar addiction can vary as well. So I'd just like to share with you, some of my insights there first. With regards to sugar addiction, and one of the things that has become very apparent is that whether it be any kind of addiction, really, whether it's regards to food or drugs or alcohol, gambling, whatever it is that it is a search for comfort. Yeah, it's a search for comfort. It is a search for some sort of, it's a tool or a coping strategy or mechanism, really, to cope with something. Okay, so that coping could be in regards or response to an actual event that's occurred, a traumatic or distressing event. That coping could be also in regards to, seeking comfort in the absence of anything else kind of pleasurable or joyful in life as well. So often, I get people, coming in and I ask them, so what's going on? Oh yeah, everything's fine, everything's all right. And I'm like, well, how are you, what fun things are you doing? What lights you up? What are you doing that's making you happy and joyful and giving you pleasure? Oh, nothing really. It's just really the same old. And this is the story I get told over and over again, that, kind of fallen into a bit of a rut, not going out much, not doing anything exciting, not connecting with people, or not connecting with people who, fill their cup up, rather than drain their cup and resources. And so I see this time and time again where, sugar, lollies, biscuits are the quick fix. It's the quick thing to give that temporary happiness, which it never does. It never succeeds. So, it leaves them wanting more and more and more. And so I'm wondering whether you, have felt this or not, whether you've experienced this, where it's like you just want to pick me up, you just want to feel better. And so you go into the cupboard or the freezer and you've, gone for your favourite foods to make yourself feel temporarily better. And so the problem with this is that after that temporary maybe high from the sugar. After that temporary satisfaction, there always comes the guilt afterwards, like, oh geez, why did I do that? Or I know I shouldn't have done that, or I know that's not good for me. Or there's that physical illness, feeling physically ill from all of the sugar or the, highly processed and refined carbohydrates that consumed and ingested. And it's also, I guess, important to note here that say this is still actually a sugar addiction, right? It's still a sugar addiction, and I'll tell you why. It's really how that food reacts in the body, and that's salty snack that's been highly processed actually acts as sugar in the body, because anything that's the carbohydrates that's highly processed, that in effect is sugar. So you might look at a white piece of bread, that is actually all sugar, even if it doesn't taste sweet. In the body, it reacts as sugar. And so there is that temporary high that occurs, that sugar spike that occurs in the body, that for some people they link with pleasure, they link with excitement, they link with energy, and they want to keep experiencing that. But unfortunately, using this kind of substance doesn't last very long. So it only creates this cycle, this habitual cycle of eating even more sugar, eating even more, processed carbohydrates, which, the individual knows is not good for them. I'm sure you know that, that highly processed white stuff is not good. Chocolate in excess quantities is not good. Tubs and tubs of ice cream, is not good for you. But there is this compulsion to keep eating, to get that high again. And so if we look at addiction versus habit is is something that you've gotten into, and it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just it's a routine that you've gotten into. And how that differs with addiction is that with addiction, addiction actually interferes with your regular, everyday, normal state of being, right? So it interferes with your function in some way. So I'll give you an example. Binge eating, for instance, late at night may interrupt your sleep cycle later. May interrupt your ability to get that 7-8 hours sleep, may cause perhaps some insomnia, and leave you tired and struggling the next day. Have you reaching for coffee? Have you reaching for more, make more sugar, donuts, processed carbohydrates and things like that? And so then that cycle perpetuates itself again. And so if the addiction interferes with everyday normal functioning, that's more of an addiction, whereas a habit is more likely to be something that you do on a regular basis that may not have those adverse effects. So for instance, if you have a chocolate bar every day with lunch, right, it may not actually interfere with normal everyday functioning. Like, yes, it's a chocolate bar. Yes, you have one every day. But does that make an addiction? I'd probably say no. I'd say that's more of a habit, more of a unresourceful habit. And if it doesn't have any effect on you, well then go have that chocolate, right? But when we're talking about sugar addiction and unwanted habits of eating excess sugar, we're looking at an interruption of normal functioning. We're looking at those emotions of remorse afterwards, that feeling of guilt or shame or I shouldn't have, the self-blame, and possibly other things that can be interrupted as a result. So sleep perhaps is interfered, excess weight gain, which is very common if you have a sugar addiction. What else? Numerous health conditions, and obviously there's diabetes that is a concern with excess sugar consumption, and a whole host of other things that are kind of weight related, that are sugar related. So, I mean, that is sugar addiction and sugar habit. So what do you actually do about it? What do you actually do about it? That's actually, you know, the place where we need to actually start and look. And really, I would be asking you to firstly, number one, reflect on your current lifestyle, right? Reflect on your current lifestyle, because your current lifestyle will leave clues as to, why and when you have this addiction. So the things I'm recommending that you look into is, are you on a daily and weekly basis, do you have something exciting to look forward to? Do you have something exciting to look forward to? Do you have something in your life that is fulfilling to you? Maybe a hobby, maybe, for some people their work is their fulfillment. But is there, in addition to that, is there something that really fulfills you and that sparks joy in your life? So that would be the first question, is to look at your lifestyle, to look at what actually brings you pleasure, and are you getting enough pleasure and joy in your life? Also, busyness of lifestyle. Sometimes that busyness that, I don't have time for this, I'll just grab something on the way. Sometimes that can be the start of creating bad habits, like grabbing things on the way, grabbing packaged goods that are highly processed, that contain lots of sugar, salt, and most likely preservatives as well if it comes in a box or a packet. And so looking at the lifestyle that you lead, and looking at firstly creating spaces in that lifestyle where you can actually provide your food, yourself and your body with adequate nourishment. So adequate nourishment, fresh fruit and vegetables, those kinds of things. Taking inventory of, well, how much of that are you actually taking in? And when you focus on increasing those, what ends up happening is that you end up getting more nutrients in your system, in your body, which decreases cravings on the other end, which, there's that physiological addiction to sugar as well. So when you increase fruit and vegetables, when you increase that kind of fibre, it stabilises blood sugar, it provides nutrients, vitamins, all those things that your body needs, and you're less likely to actually crave sugar if you focus on that first and foremost. So looking at, incorporating, what are those pleasure things that you can do in your life as well. So things like, for instance, taking a nice hot bubble bath by yourself, going out to the movies, or, going out for a coffee or something and meeting up with a friend, having a really good chat, and seeing how you're going, and having that nice friendly exchange. And so when you incorporate these things in your life and really look at and examine, well, what actually brings me pleasure, what brings me joy, what makes me feel happy, and how can I do that more often, well, then you're actually being fulfilled. Okay, you're being fulfilled from an emotional perspective. And so then, therefore, there isn't this need to actually stuff yourself and fill yourself full of sugar, because what we know is that can be a coping strategy to unresourceful emotions, to emotions that you don't want to be feeling. And so when you fill your cup, fill yourself full of pleasurable activities, you look after your nutrition in terms of fruit and vegetables and fibre and things like that, then you're definitely on the way. You're definitely on the way to breaking the cycle of sugar addiction, of breaking the cycle of perhaps this bad habit that you've got into. Maybe at the end of the day, sitting with Netflix, eating some chips, and eating cookies or ice cream or what have you. as a way of relaxing. So there are many other resourceful ways to relax and to enjoy yourself. It's actually finding, and looking up those things that you truly enjoy and that are good for you, and that are good for you long term, not just in that moment. And the second thing, or third thing rather, is looking at your emotional demeanor as well. So what I mean by that is how do you actually feel the majority of the time? How do you feel the majority of the time? Do you feel depressed or anxious? Yeah, and you use sugar to keep you going. Do you feel happy all most of the time? Oh, I'm happy most of the time, lucky. Yeah. Are you feeling sad, or do you feel resentful most of the time? Right, resentful, and which is a part of the anger emotion. So looking at your emotion will leave signs as well. Are you in a place where you're responding to a particular event or crisis that's happened? Because that can also exacerbate this search for comfort when really you need help with processing it. So a lot of people that come to my clinic, when I explore during that first session, I explore with them, what are those significant events that have happened in your life? Then I soon discover what emotion is typically at the has accumulated for them. So, for instance, if they've had a death in the family, then they might be still experiencing grief or suffering in some way, in some capacity. If they've had perhaps a marriage separation or breakup, there could be some anger there, or there could be a sense of loss too, of what could have been. Feelings of self-consciousness, embarrassment, lack of self-confidence, all of these things and all of these emotions do come up in that therapeutic process that, if they're not cleared and if they're not addressed at that emotional level, can overflow into behaviours that are unresourceful too, such as sugar addiction or other addictions and things like that. Not for everyone, but sometimes. And obviously, as a therapist myself, this is what I see quite regularly. So it's very, very common in my clinic to have people who are struggling with sugar addiction, who are struggling with bad habits as a result of a series of just unfortunate events that have happened to them. So for instance, today I spoke to a person who I had seen a year ago, had successfully completed a sugar addiction hypnotherapy program, worked successfully, beautifully, was losing weight, didn't want to touch lollies, chocolates, or any of that old stuff. But had touched base with me again and came and saw me again today and said, look, I can see these things are creeping back into my diet. And after exploring what had happened, they said, geez, you know what, I've actually had the year from hell. I've had the year from hell. Multiple displacements and moves and family issues and legal battles and all sorts of things and battling depression and things like that. And so it really wasn't a surprise to find out how they were actually coping with this, and that was, going back to those old comforts, those old, sugar friends, which are really not friends at all. And so I shared with that person the same thing that I'm sharing here with you, in terms of, I questioned them. I said, so now that all of that is behind you and you've moved on from that, how is it that you're looking after yourself? How is it that you are filling your cup? What brings you pleasure that you're doing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis? And what are those activities that you're planning in the future that you can look forward to gleefully, joyfully? Yeah. And so at the end of the session, she was given a 7-day plan, and we did some, a powerful hypnotherapy session there to integrate all of those new habits that she'll be implementing now, and along with some future planning as well, and and that will be. I trust that that will be enough. That will be more than enough and more than is needed at this time to get back on track. And sometimes you just need a little bit of a different perspective. Sometimes you need someone just to point out, going, "Hey, is that actually good for you? And you deserve better." And start implementing what you know is good for you. So I hope that's been helpful, and I hope that you've gotten something out of that. And obviously, if I can be of any more further assistance, please feel free to reach out, to send me a message or email, and I'll be more than happy to share my insights and suggestions further. So that's all from me today. Take care, and bye for now.